Hey, it's Harry here, and right now the entire smartphone industry is talking about the Oppo Find X. So if you've never heard of Oppo before, you're totally good. Oppo is a Chinese company that's based out of China, and they primarily make smartphones and gadgets and electronics and all that stuff for China, as well as a few other markets within kind of the Asia territories. They haven't done a whole lot over in like North America and stuff like that, but that seems to be changing, and the tech world over in the West is definitely taking notice of that. So for the past year and a half now, or maybe even 2 years, it seems like a lot of smartphone companies are trying to figure out how they can maximize the screen on the front of the phone. Instead of having, big, huge bezels, we want the biggest screen and yet the smallest body of phone possible. So the first iteration of, having a completely different design, having something new and, interesting, and really maximizing the screen real estate on the front of the phone was probably the Samsung Galaxy Edge phone. Now this simply curved the edges of the display and, got rid of the side bezels while, maintaining a pretty healthy amount of chin and top bezels on the phone. However, as time has gone on, those have continued to shrink. Other designs have popped up on phones now. It seems like the Essential phone about a year ago really brought this to the limits, where we lost pretty much the entire top bezel. There was a slight chin at the bottom, and then there was a notch. Interesting. And it seems like that has been the design to follow. Have a nice big screen, have, very little bezels, and then have a notch at the top, because right now we don't know where to put the front-facing camera. However, there is a phone right now that is completely changing all of that, and that is the Oppo Find X. So Oppo has announced that this phone will be released sometime this fall. I've heard estimates around like September, which is when a lot of smartphone companies like to release their phones. Now, while the phone is going to be released in the fall, right now there are prototypes that people have in their hands. There are big giant tech reviewers, talking about it and, experimenting with it and stuff like that, and, giving their thoughts on it. And while I can't get a hold of one, I wanted to go ahead and talk about the top 5 features that the Oppo Find X has that I think are going to be pretty interesting. So number 5 are the specs of this phone. This phone is rocking the latest hardware and technology that is available for Android phones right now. So we have a Snapdragon 845 octa-core processor with Adreno 630 graphics. Then we have 8 gigabytes of RAM, as well as 256 gigabytes of storage on the device. The phone also has VOOC, which is Oppo's version of like the fast charging that's kind of becoming a really big thing now. They claim their phone will charge from like 0% to 75% in the span of only 30 minutes, and that's really, really fast. It also has a 3,730 milliamp hour battery. That's very oddly specific for a battery, but that is a really big battery, so that should last a long time throughout the day. Now, going up to number 4, we have the interesting OS that's going to be on the phone. Oppo calls this Color OS, and it is a pretty heavy skin. That is something that you should note if you really like stock Android. This is, a pretty heavy modification of Android. Now, the reason that is because the Oppo, as I'll later discuss, doesn't have room for a home button, and therefore you're going to have to use gestures and stuff like that in order to navigate around. So in order to facilitate that right now, Color OS needs to be a thing on the phone in order to support all of the, gestures and swiping and things like that. Now, Oppo has stated that this phone will be coming with Android 8.1, as well as being able to participate in the Android P beta. Transitioning to number 3, we have the AI on the phone. Right now, Oppo has said a lot about the AI in terms of working with the cameras on the phone. So the AI is able to recognize up to like 800 different scenes, and it will help light those scenes accordingly and adjust exposure and stuff like that. It'll be kind of interesting to see how else they can implement the AI, whether it's more stuff with pictures like noise reduction, or it's stuff that's outside of pictures and video, and it's more on actual stuff that's very, very useful, like, helping you get to an app that you need, right now, smart things like that. It'll be really interesting to see how they plan to use the AI on their phones in a way that, improves the workflow as well as makes the device, more easy to use or more fun to use. All right, so now we come to number 2, and that is the camera system, I really should say, on this phone. So let's just start out with the basics. These cameras are 16 megapixels and 20 megapixels. They have, ability to do phase detection, autofocus. You can do touch to focus, HDR, panoramic shots. The cameras are optically stabilized, so that's really nice. They can also do 4K video at 30 FPS. You can also shoot 240 frames per second in HD, as well as 480 frames per second in just the standard, 720p HD. Also, the front-facing camera, ironically, has the highest megapixel count at 25 megapixels, which is actually more than the camera has that is recording this, which is really, really interesting. But it's kind of interesting Oppo's different, perspective or take on this, because so many companies put a lot of work into the rear-facing cameras. I'm holding 2 up, yes. And then they put very little work into the front-facing camera. But Oppo, it seems like it's kind of the other way around, where the megapixel count is higher in the front-facing camera than it is in the rear-facing camera. While that's an interesting fact, the coolest part is that this entire camera system slides neatly into the phone and then comes out when you need it. So as you can see by this footage, whenever you need the cameras slide out of the middle of the phone at the top. And then when you don't need them, they neatly slide back in. This is operated by a small motor within the phone, and the fact is they are hiding more than just cameras in this electronic slot that comes out of the top of the phone. They have a dot projector, they have the front-facing camera, and the rear-facing cameras, of course. They also have an infrared camera, and a few other things like a light sensor, as well as I think even an IR blaster is up there. But for now, this is a really cool system, and we really have not seen anything like it. Oppo has, instead of just putting, a little camera at the end of a tiny little tab that comes out, of the phone, they have made this entire system to gently and uniquely slide out when you need it and slide back in when you don't. And of course, coming to number 1, it's the screen. The screen is absolutely massive. It is a 5.42-inch display, which Oppo has coined as like a panoramic display because it's extra wide, because the resolution of it is 2340 by 1080, and that makes it a 19 by 5 by 9 display. So it's basically all you need to know is it's a little bit taller than your average display. Percentage of screen on the front of the phone is 93.8%. That is the highest percentage right now. Yes, there will be something that breaks that within the next year, I'm sure. But for right now, that's the most screen we have had and we have seen on the front of a phone. And as you can see by the pictures and stuff like that Oppo has on their website, as you can see that the screen is it takes up the entire front of the phone. The screen is AMOLED and it has the curved side so that there aren't any bezels on the side of the phone. Point is, it is a fantastic display. It's one of the best I have ever seen. So there you go. Those are 5 things that I'm super excited about with this phone. I think this phone's going to be pretty cool. Is the design flawless? No. But that's for a different video. I will have some articles where I found all of this information linked below, as well as Oppo's website, and you'll get to see their website is really, really cool, by the way. I'm just saying, it's one of the coolest and most just amazing designed website I've ever seen before. So you should go check it out, and you can find, they have all the information there. So that's all. I will see you next week.